Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, and it is finally time to finish my Estes BOSS. So the decals are as on as they're going to get. There were still those two that I had no idea where they were going to end up going, so those got omitted. Everything else is on, and I clear coated it with clear spray paint, so it is ready for just the final little bits before it can fly. It is also worth pointing out, remember this launch lug I ended up apparently not putting in the right place. I did test it on one of my pads, and it does fit in fine. Just the rod fits in underneath the big disc wing without any particular issues, so that's good to go. The last things we need to do are just set up the recovery system. So that's going to require the parachute and a shock cord here. So let's take care of the shock cord first. You need to go into the instructions here to cut out a little mount. So this is, I don't think I've made a single Estes kit that didn't have this approach to it. There's probably like one or two, but they virtually all have this approach, and that is we're just going to make a mount, and it's going to get glued inside. It's pretty classic. It works. There's some drawbacks, but this is certainly, it's easy to replace. So that's at least a selling point. So some glue, string the shock cord out here, and then fold over like so. One of the potential drawbacks to this approach is that since it needs to go somewhat near the nose cone, A, it needs to go in far enough so the nose cone fits easily, and B, there is potential that things could get snagged on the mount if it isn't flush. Well, I mean, it could anyway, but you want it as flat and flush with the tube as possible, so do take the time, to hold it flat for a moment so that it, actually I didn't that open, so it is as flat as possible. That would be a good thing. Alright, while I'm doing that, I'm going to pop the nose cone off. I did chop out the little bit of excess plastic in this hook. That was actually rather difficult, to be honest with you. There was a surprising amount in there, and it's not as smooth as it potentially could be. That really shouldn't make much of a difference, but this, just be careful with this. This is pretty thin plastic that's even holding the hook, that is making up the hook, so be careful with that. You don't cut through it or snap it or anything, because then you'd have a fairly significant problem on your hands. Alright, glue is good to go with this, so I'm going to put some glue on the back, and then into the rocket body it will go. Let's just move the nose cone for a moment. Do be careful if you have gluey hands here. Now, the instructions usually call for you to do this before you paint it, but I very rarely do that. Mostly because I don't want to have to deal with parts of the rocket being connected. Alright, so I put it in as far as I can comfortably reach with my index finger, and then I'm just going to push down, make sure that this is as flat as possible. Yeah, it feels, that's about as good as it's likely to get. The farther in the better, right? And it definitely needs to be far in, or as far in as the shoulder of this nose cone goes, so like that far in. That shouldn't be a problem. I have it, it's probably closer to about here. Yeah. And again, you have, the finish here is done. We don't want to mess with that. So glue hands, potential problem. Just be careful. As for the rest of this, thread it through. Actually, before I do that, if this is rough enough, it is a potential place where you could end up shearing the shock cord. So I'm just going to run my hobby knife over the inside of this again and try to get rid of any irregularities to make it as smooth as possible. You could probably sand this too if you wanted, but there, I can see there are a couple little burrs from when I cut it out, and we don't want that. Alright, that's better. This is a pretty small hook, or loop, but the shock cord is not particularly wide, so it shouldn't be a problem. All right, a few overhand knots. And then I'm going to trim off the excess here. Make sure you pull in these tight each time you do them. I think 3 is probably adequate here. Could certainly do more, but that's good. Alright, a little bit of excess to trim off. That's taken care of. And then the last thing I need to take care of is my parachute here. And while, if you watched any of these other ones all the way to the end, I usually use piece of fishing hardware here. These barrel swivels. Ooh, that's a lot. How about one? There we go. And I like these because they allow the parachute, in theory anyway, to spin freely on the way down, because they do tend to spin. Wow, that's a mess. There we go. And with this, at least, there's a fighting chance that it won't be as twisted up. And if it gets twisted, and that's not the end of the world, but if it twists enough, it could end up kind of cinching off the parachute so it doesn't open the whole way. And that would be, you know, for a more fragile rocket, and I don't know how fragile this one is, but it's something to be avoided. Alright, so I've got the shroud lines, I've gathered them up. I'm going to pull them tight, and I'm going to then thread my little loop through the eye of my barrel swivel, and then just pop this up, pull it tight, and there we go. It's all cinched up. You can just do a similar thing with the hook or with the loop here, but then this is obviously you're not going to get the benefit of the swivel. And the other nice thing about this is it has a clasp, so you can remove this if you need to for whatever reason. If the chute gets damaged, or if another one of your chutes gets damaged when you're out flying and you're like, well, gee, I need another chute. Well, you can remove one of these and just kind of hot swap. This is pretty well stuck in here, I have to say. Let's see if I can't get it free. Some of these get machined, however they're made, and the clasp is stuck, at least to start. Let's see if I can't. Yeah, the latch here seems to be a little bit closed, so I can try to pry that out. Yeah, it's surprisingly well stuck. Well, a pair of tweezers will definitely, or not tweezers, pliers, should be able to accomplish the trick here. Yeah, boy, that is. Oh yeah, I can see right here at the edge. This is cinched. It's been clamped shut basically, so that's not going to work. I'm going to have to pry it loose. Let's see what I have around here. I have tweezers and stuff, and pliers around, but let's see what I have like in my immediate vicinity. Yeah, that's probably too wide. I did have a spare motor hook somewhere. That might be kind of ideal. Yeah, here it is. Let's see if I can use this to pry. And I have my hobby blade, but I really don't want to use that. That seems like a great way to end up stabbing myself. So, something to be avoided. I'm just trying to get this in here so I can pry the whole thing a bit up. Because it doesn't have to go very far. It's just, it's been kind of pinched off. Which is the whole problem. Yeah, well, this is unexpected. The alternative is just get a new one. I mean, I've got tons of them, but I really would like to fix this. Well, this is a very silly problem to have right at the very end. There we go. That should do. Yeah, there we go. That was entirely too complicated for the problem at hand, but now it's been resolved. Alright, so just through and clasp. There, that's it. I do want to kind of squeeze that back down. I don't want that really wide open, but the clasp looks fine. Alright, so that's great. I'm not gonna repack this right now. I want that glue to be completely dry before I shove a parachute in there, but other than that, that's it. This thing should be ready for flight. So thanks for watching. That wraps this up. I'll see you in whatever I happen to make next. Thanks for watching.